Hi, and welcome to OLA 2020. Thank you so much for joining us in this session about maximizing your greatest resource, staff. My name is Jessica Givens, and I'm the current chair of the Membership Engagement Committee, and I'm so happy to moderate this session today. I am joined by our session presenters, Amber Cole, Ashley Nixon Amador, Ashley Welke, and Mike Pearson. Loving literacy from an early age, Amber Cole grew up reading books at Pioneer Libraries. She graduated with her bachelor and master's degrees from the University of Oklahoma. Working in philanthropy since 2004, her career includes raising $14 million for organizations including Norman Regional Health Foundation and Oklahoma State University, Oklahoma City. As a certified fundraising executive, she possesses expertise in all aspects of development and enjoys helping nonprofits exceed their goals. Ashley Nixon Amador is the Information Services Manager at the Southwest Oklahoma City Public Library, where she has worked for 5 years. She serves her community in various roles, working with youth and leaders to make a positive impact. She is passionate about innovation, engagement, and learning. Mike Pearson has been with the Pioneer Library System since 2011. He has worked in information services, circulation, and is currently the branch manager at the Norman Public Library West Branch. Ashley Welke has worked in public libraries for over 10 years in a variety of roles. She is now a regional coordinator for Pioneer Library System, overseeing branches and a system-level department. Ashley is a strategic thinker and loves solving problems. She is passionate about community-driven services and bringing people together. Ashley lives in Oklahoma City with her husband, toddler, and fur baby. And I will be back at the end of the session with some questions for our presenters, but now I want to turn it over to Ashley Welke.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, for having us today. We're really excited to talk with everyone about something we've been doing here at Pioneer, which is using cross-functional teams to maximize what we consider our greatest resource, which is staff. A little bit about Pioneer Library System. Obviously, we're located here in central Oklahoma. We cover 3 counties, Cleveland, McLean, and Pottawatomie County, and we cover an area that's almost 2,000 square miles, so we're pretty spread out, and we have a population just under 400,000 people. Our community is suburban and rural, and in total, we have 12 branches and 7 information stations. We have a purposeful administration with an executive director and 2 associate directors. And then we have a lot of centralized services like technology and material selection, with programming and outreach really developed locally. So our objectives for today is to really talk to you about the benefits of creating cross-functional teams, how you go about creating them, and how you are intentional in setting agendas and communicating information out, but also some of the really great things that come from having cross-functional teams as a regular part of your organizational culture. Horizontal and vertical relationships are developed, which is basically just saying people above you, people below you, and then your peers out to the side. That there's increased engagement and also increased morale when you use this as a strategy. We're going to share again what best practices are for creating cross-functional teams. And as we talk through that, we're going to talk about 3 specific examples in Pioneer of cross-functional teams. So we will dig into our all supervisors meetings, our foundation employee team, and our critical mission teams.
All right, Ashley Nixon Amador here. I'm going to talk about the benefits of cross-functional teams. There are several benefits to bringing together people from across your organization to participate in cross-functional teams and work toward a common goal. One of those common goals is to move our mission statement forward. Our mission, which you can see at the bottom of this presentation slide, is inspiring innovation, engagement, and learning in our communities. Moving toward progress is easier when we're able to weigh our decisions against our goals. Since our system is spread across 3 counties, our cross-functional teams give us the opportunity to cultivate the collective we, While we value the individuality of branches and communities, we do have several system initiatives, and by bringing those distinct voices together, we're able to make better decisions for our staff and customers. Another benefit of creating cross-functional teams is that we're able to help staff create horizontal and vertical relationships. Staff are able to join these teams and meet other staff they have only ever conversed with via email or seen when they were first hired. The chance to interact and develop these relationships is important, as it offers staff a possible mentor, resource, and perspective they might not have otherwise made. This environment also allows staff of all levels to develop leadership skills among other staff and managers. Within these groups, there are all sorts of various initiatives and subcommittees that other staff are empowered to lead, and it's a higher level of leadership than they would see on a branch level. Last, in this environment, staff build upon their leadership skills, and this grows the leadership bench, which means a sustainable leadership succession in our organization. The benefits of cross-functional teams are really endless, and in the next few slides, we'll give you some examples of cross-functional teams Pioneer Library System has created, what purpose they serve, how they began, and what we've learned along the way.
Hi, my name is Mike Pearson, and I'm going to just do a quick intro to our all supervisor meetings. So our all supervisor meetings are a monthly meeting with all the supervisors in the Pioneer Library System. So it's branch managers, department managers, shelver supervisors. It's also administration and operational supervisors, as well as our executive team and our associate directors. Really the purpose of the meeting is to bring everybody together so they can communicate information, discuss various topics. So if there's like big changes coming down, these all supervisor meetings, people can all get on the same page and sort of develop that collective we that we were talking about. And also with these meetings, you get to meet people that you don't normally see in your day-to-day life at the branch. So you can get mentorship from supervisors that have been there longer than you. You can get advice from people that have more experience, and so on and so forth. With the all supervisors, it's run by the staff members that attend. So there are yearly elections, and they choose 2 chairs and 1 secretary per year. And the responsibilities of the chairs and the secretary is to make up the agenda, coordinate the meetings at the meeting places, and then book speakers and presenters for each meeting.
Now we're going to get into the how of creating a team like all supervisors. Like I stated before, goals and objectives are important. They're what you will weigh all your decisions against as you create the structure of your team, and that was no different for all supervisors. We asked ourselves, what did we want to accomplish during our reign as all supervisors chairs? And we came up with a list of goals. In fact, they are the benefits listed on the previous slide. From that, we were able to create a structure that would move the mission statement forward, encourage a collective mindset, help develop horizontal and vertical relationships, develop leadership skills, and grow the leadership bench. Perhaps the best way we found to embody these goals was to create what we like to call continuing education groups, or CE groups. These were groups that our staff would break into when we moved into our continuing education training component of our meeting. Each team had a diverse set of supervisors, staff from different counties, small and large branches, frontline staff, and administrators. We gathered a list of all our supervisors and divided them into 7 groups. We chose 7 because we could make our groups pretty even with that number. I just recommend evaluating your group size based on the number of supervisors you have in your organization. When assigning a group, we asked ourselves, is this staff member from a different branch or county? How new are they to management versus how long have they been managing? Have they worked together before? How long? Are they frontline managers or administration staff? Additionally, we were able to assign 1 member of executive team to each group. This was a fantastic way to cultivate the collective we, develop horizontal and vertical relationships, and help others develop leadership skills by learning from fellow staff. I'd like to note that we did make assigning groups fun in practice. I promise the Snickers are relevant. We actually assigned each group number a candy and handed out those candies. When it came time to divide into groups, we asked everyone who had a Snickers to find their group, everyone who had a Crunch Bar to find their group. We were flexible with the CE groups, and our executive director actually moved from group to group so everyone could learn from her. We got creative outside of the groups too. For example, for our Christmas meeting, we had staff draw names that November and encouraged staff to reach out to their Secret Santa after the gift exchange to have coffee and get to know each other. So people were not only meeting in the CE groups, they were meeting outside of those as well. Once we had established our CE groups, we focused on our agenda. We knew we wanted to create a few standing agenda items, and we wanted to use the agenda as a tool to communicate that we were inviting conversation. One of the regular parts of our agenda were updates from the administration team. Previously, they were read like updates, and that's great, but we felt like asking members of administration to present on their chosen topics might encourage more interaction. The chairs reached out individually to make these requests, which helped the chairs and secretary develop relationships with an admin and frontline staff. This really proved to be effective as staff would ask questions upon hearing some updates. A great example of the impact is that a member from Reader Services presented on a new service, culinary kits. Staff asked a lot of questions, bringing their perspective from a customer point of view, and we were able to realize that it wasn't quite time to roll out that new service. It was exciting and impactful to experience that exchange and to have a conversation that would ultimately make the experience better for everyone. Another agenda item we felt was important to highlight were critical mission teams. We'll talk later about critical mission teams, but they are essential cross-functional teams that come together to carry out system initiatives. We wanted to hear updates from these important teams and ask reps from these groups to present updates to supervisors. Sometimes these updates are given via email, but it's important to note that presenting them in an environment like all supervisors invites conversation and questions that email may not. Last, we wanted staff who had gone to conferences to present their most impactful sessions to supervisors, with the hope that supervisors or admin could take this information and share it with branches. To do this, the chairs work closely with training. The process meant extending our reach beyond supervisors and bringing frontline staff in to show us what was important or impactful to them, but also offers the opportunity for others to develop presentation skills. A subset of the agenda, but something we felt deserved its own bullet point, is our continuing education outline. Each of our meetings included a learning component. We planned for this by creating a continuing education outline to implement throughout our year. The outline was simple. We listed out the months we would be chairs and noted all important system initiatives. For example, we know that supervisors should probably be made aware of PLS reads in January. Is there a presentation we might need to have sometime around then to prep? We also knew we would be rolling out our new strategic plan. Were there workshops we wanted supervisors to experience prior to that time? After we had a general outline of system initiatives, we again came back to the idea of goals. What did we want our managers to take away from each All Soups? We wanted everyone across the system to experience similar training and have access to the same tools. We decided our theme for the year would be effective leadership. Each time we considered a new CE, we would weigh it against this goal. We collaborated with other departments, especially training, to learn what options were available to us. And we also chatted with other managers across the system who had attended conferences and sessions on management. We wanted a combination of outside presenters and peer-to-peer presentations. Some examples of trainings we had were staff engagement, one-on-ones, crucial conversations, and creating an environment conducive to teaming. A note on the creating an environment conducive to teaming presentation was actually Amber Cole's presentation. We broke into our CE groups and she prompted us with questions. One of those was, what barriers do you see customers experiencing? As we shared around the room, there was a commonality. Our print release station was a barrier to great customer service. We were able to have a productive conversation. And the best part was the technology director was also in the room. So he was able to make note of the challenge and work with his staff to troubleshoot. In the end, our agenda focused on our mission statement, help cultivate the collective we, developed leadership skills, and encouraged growing the leadership bench as members of all levels, as staff members from all levels of leadership were asked to present. Overall, creating goals, outcomes, groups with diverse experiences, strengths, and jobs, creating an intentional agenda and a timeline for educating staff to help us have an impact and an effective year as chairs.
So looking back at our year as the chairs, some of the things that we've learned, one is that, at each meeting is at a separate location. So technology might not be the same at each place, and the meeting locations might not be the same size. So those are some of the things you just need to keep in mind when you're planning out activities and your agenda.
Some other things that we learned were, despite starting out with our outline for effective leadership, it was definitely flexible and it changed all the time given our environment. There's nothing wrong with preparing, but know that we have no control over administrative needs or our environment. I think COVID has taught us that. Additionally, last-minute changes may need to be made on the fly during meetings. We had several instances where our agenda topics were moved around to accommodate someone running late or someone needing to leave early. I think the lesson is be flexible, have fun, and remember that this whole process is an opportunity to learn, even for those who are organizing it. And now Amber Cole will speak about the Foundation employee team.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm here to talk a little bit about the Foundation employee team and how you can use cross-functional teams to fundraise at your organization. All right, so the Foundation employee team, what is it exactly? Basically, it's a group of employees from across different library branches who participate in planning and hosting fundraisers. So most of you have some kind of fundraising that goes on at your library, whether it's a foundation, a friends group, or just a project that you're doing in the community. And you can scale this concept to really fit your own unique organization. At Pioneer Library, we have a foundation that's over 12 different library branches. There are 2 of us that work in the fundraising office. So like many of you, we have a very small fundraising staff, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can really maximize our efforts. So by recruiting at least 1 staff member from each of those other 12 library branches, we're able to form a committee that can then serve as representatives at each of those locations and really communicate out that information back to the public. So the makeup, at least 1 person from each library branch. For you, this might be people from different departments within your own library. It could be bringing in people from different levels within the community. It's important to have representation from various departments and positions, just so that you can get feedback from people who are on the front lines and also have some leadership involved. We don't recommend having everyone on leadership just because we do like for it to be a peer-driven initiative so that people can find people within their branches that they can really relate to when they come to talk to them about fundraising. So the roles of committee members, they build relationships across libraries and departments. So they're planning employee campaigns, events, staff appreciation, all these different things by working with other libraries and getting to learn about how the different departments would institute each of these fundraisers. They are expected to bring their unique perspectives. It's interesting when you're trying to fundraise because sometimes you'll think of an idea and then maybe someone who is working in the front lines is like, well, maybe we should actually try doing it like this because people will be more responsive if we do it this way versus that way. And then it's just a good idea to have all those different people together in one room brainstorming and really working through those logistics. So they're responsible for creating both fundraising and fundraising activities. The distinction there is that fundraising focuses on raising money. Fundraising focuses on getting engagement from staff, buy-in, morale from the community, and really it's a combination of engaging both of those together. So these people serve as liaisons by reporting back and forth. So it's very valuable to have them stationed at each of the branches, because obviously 2 staff members can't be in all 12 branches at once. So having one person on staff who knows what the foundation does, knows our mission, can communicate updates on campaigns, and help really manage things at their own branch has really been effective in boosting our fundraising and fundraising efforts. So how do you go about assembling a foundation employee team? The first thing you're going to do is create your committee, and you're going to figure out kind of who the well-known people are at the branches. Really, you're looking for someone who has a lot of team spirit, a lot of fervor for the mission of the library and wanting to support programs in the community. It's not necessarily leadership, because you do want that peer-to-peer connection when you're talking about money and other things. You don't necessarily want it to feel like a top-down pressure approach. So you look for those who are well-known and enthusiastic and would just get out there and communicate the mission more so than anything else. It is important to start with library leadership before you start one of these teams to get them engaged early on, and they can also help you. They can pull some strings and do some cool things for you. Recruiting the ambassadors, so that is identifying and qualifying the candidates, and sometimes library leadership will have people in mind that might be good to put on your team. And then the structure, the meeting, and the time commitments. So you have staff at all 12 libraries. It can be hard to try to get people together. So really we meet maybe once every month or 2, just kind of depending on what season it is, what's going on, and try to limit it to about an hour for a meeting, and then maybe about an hour at some point for an activity. So they also do some work back at their branches. So really it's just a couple of hours a month. And it's really, I think it's a fun team to serve on, and it's a good way to really engage all staff in participating in the foundation mission. So they host fundraising and engagement activities. One thing we do is our employee campaign. So these employees are actually responsible for taking pledge cards to their branches, to talking to people about the foundation, and then retrieving and bringing those pledge cards back. And something cool that leadership does for us is if all employees return their pledge cards, regardless of donating, then they can receive Jeans Day for a week. And, you know, we tried pizza once, but we found that Jeans Day is really what gets staff excited. They also do some fun activities like staff appreciation. Staff members can pay a couple of bucks, and we will box up little goodies and send it to people for holidays. There's a picture of staff members assembling Valentine's Day goodie bags. And then trivia night, where we have all staff come together and they actually play trivia, they eat food, and have a great time. So what we've learned over time, we started this initiative in early 2017, and we've kept building. And the employee campaign, it's grown from about $8,000 to $12,000. This year's an off year because COVID-19, we only had about $3,500. But we've learned that it's important to make sure that you can schedule times when all staff can attend events. We've had lots of fun ideas that require getting staff together, but if you have 12 libraries and people working different hours, it can be challenging. So if you have an event like once a year where all staff get together, maybe try to see if you can work in an event there. And then you're really engaging staff from all levels. Technology challenges and opportunities, things posed by COVID-19, it can be difficult to get people together. And then staff-based competing priorities, so make sure to get out your doodle polls, set those meetings well in advance because they have things going on at their own locations and departments. And then also sometimes there are great ideas and you just have to make sure to assess, are they feasible? Will we be able to implement it? Is there someone on that team who's willing to lead and champion that idea? And then scale up your activities gradually over time. Once we got down the employee campaign, that's when we looked at adding on trivia night and the staff appreciation events. And then along the way, celebrate small victories. The team had a Cinco de Mayo party with nachos, and everyone brought Mexican food. And just really keeping the morale up for the team is very important. And now I would like to reintroduce Ashley, and Mike to talk about critical mission teams.
Thanks, Amber. So I know it's a little confusing. This is Ashley Welke coming on, and I'm going to kick off our conversation about critical mission teams. So critical mission teams are something that I think is really cool and that we have implemented in a couple of different varieties at Pioneer. And traditional structure is to have a very top-down structure where a centralized administration will make lots of decisions, and that'll get pushed out and down across the organization. And certainly there are, we utilize that structure here at Pioneer, but we also know that staff are a tremendous resource and a tremendous asset. And so we've created several critical mission teams that allow us to tap into their collective knowledge and experiences and create some really awesome and cool things. So as the name implies, a critical mission team is essentially a cross-functional team made up of staff both in branches and within administration, and they're tasked on working on projects and topics that are central to the mission of our organization. At Pioneer, we have 4 of those. We have a customer service CMT, a PLS Connect CMT, a programming CMT, and a Savannah CMT. On each of those CMTs, it is made up of a unique makeup of staff, but there always is a member of the executive team, which is our executive director or one of our associate directors, and then branch staff, which includes both frontline staff and branch managers or department managers, and then administrative staff. That includes both system department managers as well as frontline administrative staff. Briefly, the customer service CMT has really been tasked with developing our customer service philosophy, which has been amazing to see the outcomes of that. PLS Connect works on our app. We have an app that gives customers a very seamless experience to connect with a lot of different services that Pioneer offers. Our programming CMT works on system level programming and initiatives. And then Savannah is a tool that we use for a variety of different things, including marketing, messaging, and also surveying of customers. The how of a critical mission team. So the first step, and this is really similar to what both Ashley Nixon Amador and Mike and Amber have spoken to, is just to be really intentional. So each of our critical mission teams at the onset established a set of goals and objectives, and those are updated annually, but they also can be something that's updated more regularly if needed. I'm going to share an example a little later about how we leveraged one of our CMTs to work in COVID-19 on some projects. But those goals and objectives really start and cascade down from the mission statement and the strategic plan. And using that really intentional form of planning helps staff both internalize and understand the mission statement and the strategic plan, and it also helps them take ownership of those documents. It no longer is something that was created by administration, but it's something that they're living and breathing and finding innovative ways to integrate into their daily work. It really goes a long way to cultivating that collective we. We also have established subcommittees on several of our critical mission teams. Again, as the name implies, we are taking on and tackling some really, really big projects for the system. And as Amber has spoken to, when you have staff all across the system, it can be really hard to come together and work for an entire day, to ask people to come, from their departments or from their branches and work for an entire day. So subcommittees have really allowed us to break pieces of our goals and objectives down into bite-sized chunks that are much more manageable, and it allows staff that are on the committees to be really focused and accomplish really great things without maybe feeling overwhelmed with the overall scope of what that CMT is tasked with accomplishing and working on. There also is an element of positional power, and something that you have to acknowledge and work to create an environment so that you can overcome that when you have cross-functional groups. So it can be intimidating, not by intention, but just because of the position, when a frontline staff member is sitting next to a high-level administrator and both of them are sharing ideas about how we can move our mission forward. Breaking into those smaller subcommittees is a really great way for people to build more one-on-one connections and develop deeper and more personal relationships. And that really helps kind of overcome some of those potential initial fears of, or those initial intimidations of positional power. So I'm the chair of the programming CMT, and I'm going to share, just as an example, what our goal for the programming CMT is, and then what the goals of our subcommittees are, so that you guys can kind of see how you take one big idea and then break that into more bite-sized chunks. So for the programming CMT, our overarching goal is to facilitate impactful programming, specifically for summer and with PLS Reads, that meets the needs of the community. And then we have 3 subcommittees. One of those subcommittees is the PLS Reads and Continuing the Conversation series. They are tasked with sparking meaningful conversation across our communities around a relevant topic. For Beanstack, which is essentially a software that allows you to track your reading and learning activities online. That subcommittee is tasked with leveraging Beanstack to facilitate learning, to provide consistent experiences for customers across the system, in person and online. And then our last subcommittee is dedicated specifically to what we call our Summer Learning Challenge. And again, they're tasked with leveraging Beanstack to facilitate summer learning, to increase signups and completions, and to provide consistent experiences for customers across the system, in person and online. And being really purposeful, setting those goals at the beginning, and then saying them over and over again, including them on the agenda, really helps create somewhat of a mantra that people can then use to make decisions about, should we move this idea forward? Is there an area where we need to improve? Is there an area where we need to innovate or think of a new way to accomplish this goal? So it really helps keep the team driven, but also focused on what the end goal is. In terms of agendas, I truly believe that good meetings don't just happen. We use the goals for each of those subcommittees and of the overarching programming CMT or any of the CMTs to set the agenda each and every month. As the programming CMT chair, I get to serve on each subcommittee, but one of the things that's really cool is that it's another member of the PCMT that acts as the lead. And so this gives Sometimes it's a frontline staff member, sometimes it's another manager in the organization, but it gives them the opportunity to develop leadership and project management skills on a scale that, quite frankly, they wouldn't have the opportunity to develop just at their branch or just within their department. And lastly, related to communication, we've tried to be extremely intentional about making sure that staff understand what a CMT is and what a CMT is working on. So as Ashley shared earlier, this became an agenda topic at our All Soups meetings where we meet monthly. We also send out a monthly CMT newsletter, and that goes out to all staff across the system, and we share relevant updates from each CMT. And then also, each CMT member is assigned a set of branches and system departments. And what they're responsible for doing is reaching out periodically to those branches and those system departments to make sure that they understand what the CMT is working on, but also to get feedback on what they're working on. So every, I think we have to acknowledge that not every branch or every department is represented on every single CMT, but we still want staff to feel like they have a line of communication and a line to share their own thoughts and have their voice and their ideas reflected and heard. Now, Ashley Nixon Amador is going to share a little bit more about the Savannah CMT, what they work on, and what some of their subcommittees are.
Thanks, Ashley. Ashley said, I am a member of the Savannah CMT, and like Ashley, I'll be giving an overview of the Savannah CMT, our subcommittees, and their roles so you can see our impact. The Savannah Critical Mission Team is responsible for system-wide messaging and analyzing statistics via dashboards that are available to us through Savannah software. Savannah really helps us deliver targeted messaging, invest in resources wanted by customers, and work with direct feedback from customers. So it's a very great tool. It's a lot of information too, so we identified a few key areas where we needed staff to take the lead. This is where subcommittees are great. We can break down the workload and share it amongst ourselves while creating and ensuring others can step in after us by creating guidelines and procedures. We're also able to develop additional skill sets, skills that we would likely not have if we weren't a part of a CMT. The first of our subcommittees is messaging, which we actually broke down further into foundation messaging, system initiatives, renewal messages, and surveys, because there's a lot to communicate to our customers. Additionally, these subcommittees help create guidelines and templates for others to follow when creating messages so we can have a cohesive look and message. This required a huge learning curve for all of us because we were learning a new software, but we were also learning how to create effective messages. It involves a lot. Another subcommittee we chose was training. There are a lot of elements to the Savannah dashboard, and we knew it'd be important. We knew it would be an important thing to have available to our staff. All of our CMT members were assigned branches, and we're encouraged to reach out and train staff on various elements of the Savannah dashboards. Last, we created a Savannah awareness team. They're responsible for highlighting and giving an overview of a Savannah dashboard via email every month. This definitely requires CMT members to become very familiar with our software. Unlike other libraries, we're actually unique in that the Savannah dashboard is accessible by all staff. At other libraries, it's only the marketing team who handles the messaging and looks at the statistics. We wanted to encourage all staff to access and utilize the information in the software, so having that direct contact is really great. It's important to note that messaging, well, all the CMTs work with other CMTs. There's another layer of cross-functionality to these groups. For example, our subcommittee for surveys on the Savannah team works with the customer service CMT to ensure our verbiage supports our customer service philosophy. So let's move on to impact. The impact of our CMTs is huge as they help centralize our large system initiatives. I'm going to talk about some of the ways the Savannah CMT has impacted our system in particular. Probably our greatest impact as the Savannah CMT is our standardized messaging. Not only does our messaging keep customers knowledgeable about last-minute closings, whether that was for COVID-19 or severe weather, but also upcoming system events like PLS Reads or Summer Learning. We've also helped the foundation fundraise. In addition to this, we've been able to create a consistent voice and cohesive look that really is a projection of our collectivism. Probably the second greatest impact that comes from the Savannah CMT is something called Market Watch. Watch is a dashboard that gathers various statistics from across the system, including our market penetration, which is the number of customers versus active users in our area. We used these statistics to influence our system goal, which is essentially increasing the number of active cardholders across the system. This year, we targeted areas that had a low market penetration and reached out to homeowners associations, businesses, and churches to make customers aware of our services and programs and really ask them what they wanted to see in their community. In turn, we use that feedback to influence the kinds of programs we provide. Last, and probably my favorite Savannah team impact, is our Net Promoter Score. A Net Promoter Score is a management tool that is used to gauge customer satisfaction. Our current NPS score is an 86. And to put that into perspective, Apple has an NPS of 79, Google 73, and eBay 71. The best thing about NPS is we ask our customers if they would like us to follow up with them in the survey. And we're able to further relationships with customers by having conversations about their feedback. One of my favorite stories from this is a customer left a message about how much she loved ebooks. So I reached out to her and asked her if she would like to let me know more about her story and how we could better serve her and our customers. She came in to visit me actually face to face, and we talked about fantasy novels. Her favorite book was Lord of the Rings, and mine is too. So I enjoyed getting to know her better and was thankful that the Net Promoter Score survey gave me that ability to connect with her. And now Ashley will discuss some of the impactful outputs from the programming CMT.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So I think part of too what I want to share is that sharing the successes that have come out of these CMTs, none of this would have happened, in my opinion, if it wasn't for these cross-functional teams. It really is the collective creativeness of these groups to problem solve and examine things from different perspectives, and just it has been so beneficial to bring so many people, kind of pull the curtain back and bring so many people in the loop. It also, I think, really supports that concept of many hands make light work. We've been able to achieve a lot of really amazing things while running relatively lean within our administration compared to other organizations of our size. And I think it's truly because we have this cross-functional structure replicated across the system. So specific to the programming CMT, one of the things that we were able to do in 2019 was to transition from a traditional summer reading program to a summer learning challenge. And I have to admit that I was a little nervous in doing that, because this was we had a long tradition of having a summer reading program, and there was a lot of variation to that program from branch to branch and community to community. And we really were able to get staff all moving in a very consistent direction, which resulted in having really consistent and positive experiences for customers. We actually saw online participation quadruple, and collectively across all 3 of our counties, customers spent nearly 6 million minutes reading and learning in the summer of 2019. And again, I truly attribute that to having so much input and buy-in from staff because of this CMT structure. We also were able to grow our PLS Reads program from being over the course of 1 month, where we selected a book and it was that one book, one community concept. We were really able to grow that into being a year-long series of programs that would dig in and examine a topic that was really relevant and critical in our community at the time. In 2019, we read The Hate U Give, and we discussed racism. And then in 2020, we've been reading Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine and talking about mental health. Those are both really tough topics. But it's been wonderful that the library can be this safe space to bring people of all different backgrounds together to talk about these things and make a stronger community. One of the more recent things that has happened was we have created and implemented a Dial a Story program. And this came out during COVID-19. A lot of managers were working very closely on reopening branches, checking in with their staff, moving furniture around. There were a lot of tasks that we all were really working on during the month of May as we prepared to open to the public. And one of the things that we knew is that there were folks all across our county that were either not going to be able to come into a library because of health concerns, or maybe transportation was just a barrier for them. And so we implemented this Dial a Story program. And one of my favorite parts about it is that it is a frontline staff member that has developed it. They select the stories, they translate the story from English into Spanish, they read the story. And so it really has given a frontline staff member the opportunity to develop a lot of really wonderful leadership skills, project management skills, and really have opportunities to do things that likely would not, they wouldn't have the opportunity to do just within their local department or their local branch. I also wanted to talk just a little bit about our customer service CMT. Something that they did just a few years ago was really focus on developing a customer service philosophy. And it's been incredibly impactful. The picture here is 2 staff members from that CMT working through and brainstorming what we wanted our customer service philosophy to be. But it also included surveying all staff across the organization. And it was just a really wonderful process that brought staff together. And it's also been a great guidepost for us to use as we empower staff to make decisions in the moment, and really to use that philosophy of creating positive experiences to make decisions against. The other thing that the customer service CMT more recently was involved in was helping develop reopening guidelines in COVID-19 era. I think that we all, right now it is somewhat of a scary time. And one of the things I think that's been really positive is that we've been able to tap into the experiences and the knowledge of staff at every level of the organization to help us work through the details of what it means to open back up to the public in phases, while really being mindful of keeping staff safe and keeping the public safe. Again, I think that it's been great that we had this CMT structure in place. And so it allowed us to really very quickly tap into a set of staff and achieve some really impactful things.
Thank you, Ashley. In conclusion, cross-functional teams can make a large impact on your organization and maximize what staff members are capable to do. It gives all staff members the opportunity to contribute their unique talents. Whether you're a shelver or someone serving on an administrative team, everyone can contribute and share ideas. Over time, participation in these groups fosters leadership development, whether it's helping plan a fundraiser or a program by serving on a CMT or instituting something you developed at all SUVs. There's all kinds of opportunities for staff to further develop these skills and grow the leadership bench. Advances initiatives core to PLS mission by targeting those directly in the case of the critical mission teams. And then also, this model creates a safe space for staff collaboration. They can build relationships with staff members they usually wouldn't get the opportunity to interact with, whether from a different department or library. They can use their unique skill sets to solve different problems and learn from each other. In addition to leading their peers in different initiatives, they can also give direct feedback that they might not feel comfortable giving in other situations, and also learn to accept and receive feedback themselves. And one of the most important things that this model does is it empowers staff. It makes them realize what their engagement can do to further their involvement and advance PLS's mission. And with that, I would also like to post up here our contact information if you have any questions, and I will turn it back to Jessica Gibbons.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amber, Ashley, and Mike for that presentation. So I've got a few questions for you all to follow up on. You talked a little bit about with the critical mission teams that you send out newsletters and that there are staff in each branch who are champions of that particular CMT. Can you tell me more about what the rest of, especially frontline staff's interactions are like with CMTs or with foundation employee team? How much, from the CMT down and then bottom up communication goes from frontline staff, and what is their experience like?
Start by answering that, and everyone else please jump in. But one of the things that I think is great about the structure of using cross-functional teams is, we've said it over and over again, but it really does allow the development and also leveraging vertical and horizontal relationships. So for example, if we have a staff member from a certain branch that serves on a CMT, one of the things that's really great is not only are they bringing their own perspective and their feedback to the table, but they're also bringing the perspective and feedback of their peers and their network. And certainly their network is within their own location, but a lot of staff have relationships across the system. And so we really encourage members of every critical mission team to utilize that network that they have to talk through new ideas or to get feedback on new initiatives that are being rolled out. So beyond some of those more formalized ways, like sharing in all soups and sending out the newsletter, and having members of the CMT visit branches or talk with managers at branches and within departments, there's also that really informal way that information and ideas are able to travel up and down the chain.
Great, thank you. A couple of you mentioned a bit about combining people in leadership roles or supervisors and frontline staff in the same team, not wanting it to be entirely top down. And Ashley, you mentioned positional power, a dynamic that can be created and that you have to be mindful of. For example, if you are a regional coordinator and you sit on subcommittees of a CMT that you chair, what steps do you take to empower the staff who lead those subcommittees, or empower staff in mixed groups to feel comfortable speaking their mind when they may be sitting next to the library director?
Sure, absolutely. And I think also Ashley Nixon Amador can speak to how we had the executive director maybe move from group to group in all soups, and kind of some of the strategies that she used and some of the things that she did to really kind of spark that dialogue. But I think that there are a couple of things that if you are in a quote unquote position of power, I think it's really important to recognize that and not take it personally, but also make sure that you're being intentional and doing the best you can to take steps to minimize that to a certain degree. So some of the things that personally I like to do, I like to ask people what their opinion is, especially if they haven't really spoken up yet. Not to put someone on the spot or call them out, but in a really friendly way, just open up the dialogue with that individual about what their opinion is, what we're discussing. You also have to be really thoughtful about the fact that you can sway a conversation. So this can be, honestly, it's something that sometimes I struggle with, is making sure that I'm doing a really good job of listening and letting other people share and share their conclusions. Because if I'm the first person to speak out on a topic, there's the potential that that's really going to sway or influence what other people have to say, or influence if they don't say anything at all.
And I can speak more on what Ashley talked about with having our executive director in our CE groups during all supervisors. I was actually lucky enough to have Lisa in my in my CE group the first time around. And so the benefit of that was she would often, it's kind of contrary to what Ashley said, she would often answer the question first, which made us feel more comfortable being vulnerable around our executive director, with our executive director and our peers, because she was so willing to share her experiences with us. And we recognized that that was so valuable because, I mean, she's the executive director. She has a great perspective and she has faced the same challenges that we faced. So having her rotate groups ensured that everyone had the opportunity to see her as, I guess, almost one of us, like one of the all supervisors. And I think you tend, when you are in an organization, even though Pioneer has all these groups that really help us lead from the bottom up, you sort of still see a hierarchy, and that really helped encourage, again, that funnel of, you know, we are making decisions from the bottom up. It was a really neat thing to see. I don't know if Amber or Mike have anything to contribute to that, but they were also part of that decision to move Lisa around in our all soups group.
The only thing I'd add is that it seems to have worked pretty well. So.
And I'll just add that I love that there's so many different approaches, right? I mean, I think that that's what's so great about having cross-functional teams and really trying to create a culture, a learning culture, is that there's lots of ways to achieve desired outcomes and goals. And I think it's really healthy to acknowledge that someone may have a different way of doing it, and that's awesome and that's great, and we can all learn from it.
Thank you all. One last question. How do you, so I probably should have disclosed this at the beginning. I also work at Pioneer, so I do have some inside knowledge as to how the CMTs and these different groups work. Some of them are led, either subcommittees or even at least one CMT are led by frontline staff, and then also led by supervisors who don't technically directly supervise the people in those groups. So any insight into how those leaders can direct staff who aren't their direct reports but are a part of their team?
Amber, do you want to take that and talk a little bit maybe about how you interact with staff on the foundation team?
Sure. So it is interesting because it is a mixture of supervisors and non-supervisors as well. I feel like the people we pick for the teams are, for the most part, pretty responsive, even as supervisors, even if, say, I'm kind of helping to move the conversation along, I think that they've been pretty respectful in terms of, even though they don't report to me, I think they still respect that dynamic, and they don't feel like they necessarily have a second boss or anything to report to. And yeah, I think it's interesting mixing in supervisors with non-supervisors, and I think that over time, some of the things we've talked about already, the being vulnerable, encouraging supervisors to be vulnerable as well, helps facilitate those conversations. And I think that there are some staff that maybe no matter how much you poke or prod, they just might not feel comfortable having conversations or discussing their viewpoints in a team setting. And in that case, I think you have to make efforts to maybe either email them or have conversations with them on the side to check in and make sure that their viewpoints integrated. And, if that boundary kind of exists between them and a supervisor, maybe another supervisor can say, hey, so-and-so had this great idea. And that could help with the reception as well.
The other piece I'd add, and I really echo what Amber has said, I think that we're really fortunate to have a lot of wonderful staff serving on all of these different teams. But from time to time, something may come up. And so one of the, kind of rules of thumb that I use is that I absolutely want to have that relationship where there's trust there. And I think that part of trust is being open to giving and receiving feedback, with your eye on giving feedback for improvement in the future, not to be punitive about what has happened in the past. And so I think if there's something that comes up that warrants a feedback conversation, that's really great for whoever the leader of that cross-functional team is, for them to have that directly with the member of that, in my case, maybe it's a CMT member, but in any case, to have that conversation directly between the leader and the member of that cross-functional team. But I would say that there is a tipping point. And if there is, you've had that conversation, it's a continued pattern of behavior, that's absolutely a time when, I think you reach out to that person's supervisor and dialogue about what's going on so that you can best support that employee in making them aware of their behavior and the impact of their behavior, and then also how can we give them the tools so that they can better handle that situation in the future. So, I don't think that you have to be worried about bringing other people into the mix if that's what's warranted.
I also just want to reiterate, the positional power is really real. And I think that the subcommittees, that's the really cool part of subcommittees when it comes to CMTs, because those are generally led by someone who's a non-manager, I feel, in most instances. Actually, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it gives that staff member an opportunity to lead, and they can strike up conversations as they encounter issues with a supervisor. But I just think that is an important thing to keep in mind when you are a supervisor on a committee or like a CMT, because it is intimidating. It's intimidating to have your supervisor there. So I just felt like that was important to say.
Well, thank you to our presenters for presenting at OLA 2020, and thank you to all of you for joining us for this session. If you enjoyed this session, I would also encourage you to consider joining your OLA division. That's public libraries, university and college, or Oklahoma school librarians, for more opportunities to learn and connect with other library staff throughout the state. Please remember to complete a session evaluation in the OLA conference app, and we look forward to seeing you at more of our conference sessions.